Hi there, this is just a quick video to look at some of the functions on the CAS calculator that you should probably think about before going into your exam. Before going into the exam, a very big recommendation is to make sure you've changed your batteries and you've put in fresh, brand new batteries into your CAS calculator. The last thing that you want to happen is that you're halfway through your exam, in particular something like financial maths section where you need the financial solver and your calculator batteries die. My second recommendation is taking in a scientific calculator as well. So the CAS calculator is fantastic, that it can do so many functions. However, the quick use functionality to do simple calculations is a lot faster on a scientific calculator. And then if you would have an issue with one of your calculators, you've still got a second backup calculator. The first thing that I would really recommend doing is clearing your calculator. So by clearing your calculator, you're making sure that any pre-saved data or any pre-saved lists or information that you might have used in previous questions or previous exams, if you're doing your methods exam, that you can clear that to make sure that it's not impacting on any of the questions in your further maths exam. I'll show you right now how we can do that. So if we slide to our systems menu here and go to the top left, there's a reset button. By clicking reset and you reset all of the above, by doing that, it makes sure that your calculator is completely reset. And the first thing you need to check is once you've reset your calculator that you go down, go to the main menu, and you have a look down here at these buttons down here. Now, you need to have, in further maths, your calculator should say DEG, and DEG is for degrees. If you're doing methods or specialists, you might, in some of the questions, have to have your questions being answered in radians. So radians is a different calculation using sine, cos, and tan. And in further maths, we don't use radians, we use degrees. The other button here is decimal and standard. So standard is where it's in fractional form. Decimal is where the answer will be in decimal. Either way, you can also change your answer by using the decimal to the fraction button. Now, to check that your calculator is in the right setting for geometry and trigonometry, you can do a very simple calculation of sine 90. So if your calculator is in the correct mode, it should equal 1. I will show you what it looks like down here if we go to radians and we do the same calculation, sine 90, it equals a completely different number. And as you can see, if you were trying to use sine, cos, and tan in the geometry trigonometry section and you've got the wrong setting on your calculator, you're straight away going to get an incorrect answer. So make sure that your button down the bottom is in degrees. And like I said, you can just check that sine 90 does equal 1. So that's the first check to make sure that you do. A next point that I want to show is if we go to statistics and let's clear this data, I would really recommend that the first thing you do if a question's asking you to do a transformation to some data, etc., that you clear this data. Because if you rename some of your lists, for example, let's change list 3 to list 1. If I put that in there, it's going to place the pre-saved data that's already saved in as list 1. And this can be a little bit of an issue when you're using your X and your Y values and then you're doing your manipulations down the bottom here when you're doing a log transformation or a reciprocal transformation. So let's change that back to list 3. It clears it, and as I said, my recommendation is to clear all your data in the lists before you go any further. When you're doing your transformations or you're using your statistics and you're putting these in, don't waste your time changing this to, for example, if it was age in the question for the X variable, don't waste your time changing it to age, because when you come later to do some further questions, you're going to have age in there. It's not necessary, so you can leave these as just the list 1 and list 2, list 3, and when you are doing manipulations, just make sure that you choose the right list to do your manipulation. So instead of having age, for example, you just make sure that you're listing the correct list in there. Alright, heading back to the main menu, one of the things that you can use is the solve function. So if you get a really big formula, it might be solving for a sign rule where the unknown's on the bottom and you're not sure how to manipulate it around, you can use the solve function. So the solve function is listed in Math 1, and it's this button here that says solve bracket. So by using this function, you can solve for a variable of any given equation as long as the equation is correct. So let's use a really simple equation as we need to find what the x variable is. X squared is equal to 9. So this could be a good question. You're not sure how to move that squared over to the other side to calculate what the x variable is. When you're using the solve function, make sure that you finish off by doing a comma, placing in the variable that you need solving for, and closing off the bracket. And by pressing enter, it can give you one or two answers. So in this case, whenever you square a negative number, it equals a positive number. So they've actually given the two potential answers for this. So there's a function that you can use using the solve function. If we go to Math 1, and you need to put a fraction within a fraction, what you can do is use the fraction button that's listed here. So this might be, for example, 142 over, and you might want to put another fraction in that. So you can click into the bottom of the fraction and place in another fraction. So potentially this could be 80 over sine 24 or 34 or something like that. So you can double press that fraction button to place in a fraction within a fraction, and then you can press enter and it gives you an answer. Using all these buttons here, there's quite a few functions, but Math 2 is where your buttons that you can use for matrices are, and in the trig sections where you can do your manipulations for sine, cos and tan. You've got your keyboard there, but you can use the variables that are listed on the top of the keyboard, which is fine. Hopefully that you've learnt some tricks here, and hopefully this will help you get a few more extra marks on your exam. Thank you.